Welcome to the NRT Now podcast, giving you the latest in Christian music news, topics, and artist interviews directly from the largest Christian music site online, newreleasetoday.com. Now, here's your host, Jake.
Welcome to episode 33, y'all, and I am here with Micah Tyler. Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for joining us.
Oh my gosh, pumped to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
So we're talking just a second ago. You just moved into a new house right before all this quarantine stuff happened. You're about 3-4 hours away from where I am right now, which right now seems like forever away.
Yeah, it seems like we're on the other side of the planet right now.
We're talking just a little bit that you might have a side business of a carpenter once this whole thing gets done here.
Yeah, we moved into the house and, they did a great job building everything, but there's just a little extra touches. So I've been hanging up a lot of towel racks, a lot of curtain rods. And so I have a very specific, essential job waiting on me if this music thing doesn't kick back up here pretty soon.
Yeah. That's probably the best and the worst time for honey-do lists. The best time for the wives and the worst time for us guys.
That's right. That's right. But you know what? At these kind of days, I'm looking for something to do. And so if it's one more towel rack, then let's keep our hands dry because we're washing our hands for sure.
I know, right? And for 20 seconds each time.
That's it.
The first time I heard of Micah Tyler was actually when you were here in Dallas at a church called Watermark.
Yeah.
And you put out should we call it a truthful video or a humorous video?
You know what? I'll let the listener be the judge of that. The way I connected with Watermark the first time was I actually was on a Christmas tour with Shane and Phil Wickham as the opener for them. We played Watermark. And while I was with them, I did this little silly parody of a Phil Wickham song and a Shane song. But basically, I played it live and I just said, hey, I tried calling the guys to see what they wanted me to do in this tour. And I got their voicemails. Do you want to hear them? And I took a Phil Wickham song and I changed it into what it would be like if it was a voicemail message. Nice. So it was like I see your name popping up on my screen. And I know there's something important that you have to tell me. But I just do not want to pick up my phone. So please leave your name and number after the tone beep. It's so dumb. It's cheesy. But I did that. Did a Shane thing. Afterwards, JP, who was one of the associate pastors at the church, invited me to come back and do some stuff with him. So I started doing a couple of events with Watermark. And I saw this kid on YouTube take Disney songs and did this a cappella version of these Disney songs. It was just 4 of him on the screen wearing different colored t-shirts. And I was like, well, I guess I could figure that out. So started making those kind of things to intro some stuff for the church. And I ended up doing a leadership conference where instead of introducing people, they wanted me to introduce topics, and topics like missionaries and what it's like to be a good leader and stuff. And they wanted me to sing about all the different stereotypes that are attached to these people or these jobs, professions, or whatever. And one of them was millennials. That one was the easiest one to write for me because I was able to look in the mirror and see half of them. And so It kind of worked itself out. I'm a millennial myself. Made it for the church. They played it at a leadership conference for 700 leaders and stuff. Went over really well. And a week and a half later, they're like, hey, we're going to throw it on Facebook. I said, okay. The last number I was told was it's over 100 million cumulative views from all the different pages who've posted it and stuff. And it's 100 million more than what we were expecting for sure. But it was kind of a neat way to introduce me to Christian radio and to people so they could kind of figure out my name first, I guess.
I mean, I laughed my butt off at that one. And I'm in the millennial camp. I try and sneak myself into the Zennial, that kind of that middle between Gen X and millennial. Apparently that's a thing.
Sure.
I didn't know that until recently. But
right.
I keep getting denied. I keep getting pushed down to the millennial side.
That's the thing. I can't. I'm on the cusp. I'm on the very edge of it, but they're still my people group. What was crazy was I had already signed a record deal earlier, about maybe 7 or 8 months before that video came out. And we had already written songs like Never Been a Moment and Even Then and Different. I already had them fully produced. And I was going to meet with Christian radio at the Momentum Conference, which is like a conference where radio people from all over the country kind of meet up at this summit, and Christian artists go in and you can introduce new artists, or our artists that are out on the radio can kind of tell them, give them an update, play some new songs that are going to be coming out to radio the next year. And so I was meeting with them at a summit in Nashville the next day. 24 hours before that, no one knew who I was. And then walking into the meeting, we had a viral video in the works. So it was kind of a crazy way to be introduced, but it was fun that we already had those songs kind of in pocket, ready to hand over. And we had an audience for people to listen to them.
Well, they say no press is bad press or something like that.
Yeah.
One of those
you know
phrases.
what? It definitely felt that on some days. And then there's certain days where I was getting death threats from angry millennials that made me feel a little bit different. But, the thing is, it started getting shared with that context, and people thought that I was just like bashing everyone and just going after millennials. And I'm going, no, like this was like a speaker got up right behind me and basically talked about how millennials are more than these stereotypes, and like our generation is more than grabbing a cup of coffee and making an Instagram post and rubbing some essential oil on. It's like, but they didn't air that part of the video. And so they just saw me like ranting and raving like I'm some curmudgeon or something. But yeah, it's all passed over now. It was 4 years ago, April 28th or something like that. And so a lot's happened in the last 4 years.
If you can't laugh at yourself in some of the stereotypes, I mean, I think you've kind of lost it a little bit at that point, because I mean, we all have our things. We all have our generalizations.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Millennials or Gen Xers, each generation has their own defining characteristics. They've all gone through different seasons. The world that we're living in today, I mean, that my kid with all this quarantine, this is going to be something that will shape her, and it'll redefine how we interact as humans and how we interact as a church and all that just down the line. Whereas the millennials have had a certain experience, the Gen Xers, the baby boomers, there's different stereotypes and generalizations that define each age group. And like I said, if you can't laugh at them a little bit, I mean, I don't know.
That's my thought process. I love that now everyone's love language is just memes. Like we can just make a meme about the quarantine again. At least like most of people can kind of laugh at what's going on and stuff. And the deal is we're living in the middle of something right now. And there's been very few times. I mean, 9/11 was one of those situations where it's going to be in a history book someday. Like that's now part of a history book. But what's crazy is this event right now is in the world's history book. Kids who are going to be growing up in China, in France, in Argentina, all over the world. This little segment of time that we're in right now is something that we're all kind of being touched by all at the same time. And so I do think that humor is such a great way to disarm and to kind of dispel some of the fears and worries, that it's so much easier to turn on the news right now and just get scared to death of what's going to be happening and stuff. And I think that we should definitely be mindful and wise with the information that we're given, but also take a second to just kind of laugh about toilet paper not being in stores and get a kick out of that, and then just try to work out the rest of the stuff as we go.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many weird things about this. Like you said, like, why toilet paper? I don't understand it. That's not even one of the symptoms.
No. But I tell you this, though, the other day I walked to Walmart and was going through, and I always just glanced on the toilet paper. I was like, I don't even know if we need any or not, which at the time we were kind of running a little bit low. And so I kind of looked down the aisle and I saw this like cardboard box at the end of the big giant empty aisles. And I walked down there and it was as if I had stumbled upon a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There was just a box of Charmin Soft. And I'm just like looking for signs of seeing how many of these I can grab and stuff. I felt like I had stumbled upon a ruby in a field. So we're living in just such a bizarre time right now. And so you little moments to be able to laugh and to be able to kind of move on to the next thing. I think it's good for us sometimes not to get bogged down on the misery of our situation, but also know that we're still here, that we are still loved, that we are still thought of. And I think that God sends along little things sometimes for us to do, to kind of laugh at, just to kind of give us a little relief in the middle of the craziness from day to day.
One of the things that I've really been feeling in my heart about this whole thing is a lot of the humanity has been taken out. All we hear are case counts. We hear fatality counts. We hear about just the dangers of going out. We hear the dangers of this. Everything shut down. The hope is gone. Actually, just little things like getting a haircut to feel human. People are getting mocked just wanting a haircut to feel just a little bit more human.
Yeah.
Just all those things. It just seems like some of the humanity out of the whole situation, or has been taken out of the whole situation. Just some of that humor, some of that laughter, just to me, just puts a little bit of that humanity back and just gives a little bit of a light in just a kind of a dark situation.
Totally agree. I think we can totally get caught up in the sterile, factual part of this whole thing, but we're human beings and we're trying to navigate our way through this whole thing together. And I think that if I'm trying to use humor to get me out of this situation and humor alone, then I think we're missing something too. So I don't want to make light of all of it, but golly, part of being a human being is experiencing, the variances of emotions and things. And so I think that laughter and humor is definitely one of those things that we kind of need to be able to spark some joy, or like I said, just give us a little relief in the middle of it. So I'm ready to start laughing a little more, but at the same time, I'll take the laughs where I can get them for right now.
Yep, for sure. So tell us a little bit about Micah Tyler and your story through, like we talked about you being on staff at Watermark and working at Watermark here in Dallas. Talk to us a little bit about your story and then moving into the artist that you are today, releasing your sophomore album, right?
Yes. Yeah. Sophomore of my, that's it. Sophomore record on the label for sure. And so fun fact, I didn't work for Watermark. A lot of people thought that because I did a lot of things with them and stuff. I was born and raised, currently have never lived outside of Buna, Texas, which is just a little unincorporated township down in Southeast Texas. When I was 17, felt the call to go into ministry. Started going to church when I was a kid, and when I was 10, gave my life to Jesus. So at 17, felt the call to be a youth pastor because I had a youth pastor who made this profound impact on my life. Started doing youth ministry right after high school, 18 years old, became the youth pastor at a little church here in Buna. When I was 20, the youth group started growing, and I wanted somebody to play guitar so they could possibly lead in a few songs, do like some worship tunes or whatever before I would teach. Just kind of give it, kind of round out our night a little bit. Bought a guitar and ended up learning a few songs on it to kind of lead worship for the group, which turned into me leading a few more songs, which turned into me leading worship for other buddies of mine who were youth pastors at their Wednesday nights or their Disciple Now weekends or retreats or camps and stuff. I started writing some music, ended up making a little indie record just kind of for fun, just kind of see what it would be. And that's when the Lord really kind of turned my heart from being a youth pastor to stepping out and doing music. And it wasn't because we had a tour bus or a, record label looking at us. It was literally like, we just felt like that we were supposed to be stepping out and being faithful in this way. And so we ended up selling over half of what we owned. We bought a single wide mobile home trailer, put it on some borrowed land. I started doing some odd jobs, and then I started doing music. And I kind of became known as the local opener here in Southeast Texas. And so when a big artist would come to town, they would call me and say, hey, you want to do a couple songs before they get up there? And so I opened up for acts like Building 429 and Sanctus Real when Matt Hammond was the lead singer with those guys.
Uh-huh.
And I opened up for Phil Wickham. And so Phil was super nice to me and ended up inviting me to come open up for him again about 9 months later in Tyler, Texas. Got to Tyler, and Phil Wickham's plane could not land because of the storm. And so I had to do a sold-out Phil Wickham show by myself. And this was in a place in Tyler's about 3 hours from where I live, so no one there knew my music at all. Wasn't playing on Christian radio, nothing like that. And so I just got up there and played everything I could think of, just like try my best to love the people in front of me. I could tell they were bummed, but we ended up having this really special night. The next day, Phil's road manager called me and just asked me like what I did. And I was like, I don't even know, man. It was all a blur. I just tried to like survive basically. And they just said, man, we've heard some people that have messaged us already about it and just love what you did. We'd love to have you come out and do some more things with us. And so I ended up getting invited to go out on that Christmas tour. And like I said, it's just been one of those crazy situations to where now Phil's manager is my manager. Phil's record label is my record label. And so it really kind of opened up some doors. So when people ask me, how did you get a record deal? I just tell them like Phil Wickham didn't show up for a show.
You're a substitute Phil Wickham.
That's it. No, that's it. People ask me all the time. They're like, so how, like, did you sing some Phil Wickham songs? I'm like, no. The only thing worse than Phil Wickham not being there is me up there trying to sing Phil Wickham's songs. And a huge Phil Wickham fan. And so it was awesome to get to do that. And the first tour I ever like hopped on a bus and went on was his Children of God tour, which was about 3 years ago with Stars Go Dim. And just Phil's one of those guys who constantly has been such an encouragement to me. And so, so that led to me signing that record deal in August of 2015, I think. And we started making an album, and we made the Different record. released that one in October of 2016, and then like the rest of like the EP, and then the rest of the record later that year. And then, we just got through with the sophomore record, spent 3 years making it, and we just released it about 2.5 weeks ago in the middle of this pandemic, which was not the plan, but at the same time, we've been trying to seek out the hope of Jesus for the past 3 years of walking through a lot of crazy stuff in our personal life that we've found hope in Jesus through. And so we're hoping that releasing this music in the middle of all this craziness now may bring some hope to people here.
Well, and I got to admit, shamefully, that I just listened to the album for the first time about an hour ago. I figured, hey, if we're doing this, I may as well listen to the album. No shame.
Come on. No shame.
But, I mean, there's a lot in this album, just a lot of good, upbeat, just feel-good music, as well as some really good, deep, spiritual songs as well that just bite in.
Yeah.
So, I got to say, before we get too far, that you're talking about that storm that delayed Phil Wickham. Storms here in Texas are like no joke. That's funny you say that. The first time that I brought it was the second time I brought my wife down here. Second time she's ever been on a plane, the whole works. And we fly into a thunderstorm. And we tried to land 2 or 3 times. We'll get to that certain level of just the plane's rocking, just ain't happening. Finally get diverted to Shreveport, which is about 3-4 hours away from Dallas here. And that was my wife's second plane experience, and somehow she still flies with me. I don't understand why, but
there you go.
I mean, storms here are
Phil, no way. And Phil was supposed to land at DFW Airport and then drive an hour and a half to get to Tyler, but they ended up having to divert to Oklahoma City. So he was like 5 or 6 hours. Like, there's just no way, unless people wanted to wait until 1 o'clock in the morning for Phil Wickham to come in and play the show. So they're like, hey, can you just get up there and do this? But man, it's that crazy thing of someone was asking me this earlier, like, what do you hope to be as a person? Like, what's your goal in life? Like, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? For me, like, man, I want to be known as someone who was faithful to whatever God put in front of me. Sometimes that is opening up for Mercy Me in front of 12,000 people at a sold out arena and all this kind of stuff. Sometimes it's Phil Wickham not showing up for a show. Sometimes it's me driving for 7 hours so I can get to a youth group of 15 kids who don't know me so they can not listen to me play these songs that they've never heard before that I just wrote 10 years ago. And sometimes it's being a youth pastor. Sometimes it's learning how to play the guitar in your bedroom when you're 20. It's like whatever God's put in front of me. I'm not saying that I have been faithful the whole time, but man, that's my goal every day. And so sometimes they're fun situations and sometimes it's hard. Speaking of storms in Southeast Texas, Hurricane Harvey devastated our little area 3 years ago. And you talk about no joke, man, like that storm, we had almost 50 inches of rain in just a few days here in Buena. And that little mobile home that we were living in that we just moved out of about 3 months ago, it took the brunt of that whole thing. And we had to replace 4 rooms in that house, the floors and the ceilings. Wow. I mean, the floors and the walls from that. And so that was one of those things that, man, God gave us the opportunity to, we could just be upset and say we're giving up, or we could say, God, there's purpose in this and we're going to be faithful through this whole thing. And so this record definitely has a lot of those things that God taught us how to be faithful in the midst of trials and how to trust him more. And man, we trust Jesus more now because of that storm.
Harvey definitely made the news, and there's a lot of stuff going around about Harvey. But, us here in Texas, even the Dallas-Fort Worth, we were talking about the Rangers gear earlier. There's even the scuffle between the Astros and the Rangers.
Oh, sure.
The heck with the Astros. No.
It's hard, man. I've been an Astros fan my whole life. Like, I went to the Astrodome growing up, and my first professional sporting event was going to an Astros game. That was the big deal after Hurricane Harvey, is that we won the World Series, and everyone was just freaking out. United our area and like Houston strong and all this kind of stuff. And so for the fact that, that all this stuff has come out about it, there being all this cheating scandal and stuff, it's rough, man. I'm not trading in the orange and the navy just yet to go for the red and the blue that you're wearing right now. But I definitely am trying to figure out how to feel about all this right now. It's hard having a championship that just feels like it is just tainted. But, there's bigger things in life, I guess.
Well, we had the Odor and Bautista thing a little bit. So, I mean, there's... Yeah, I understand. How do you feel
been in your
about
scuffles?
That? Yeah, exactly. I mean, nothing beats the Nolan Ryan and Robin Ventura situation. I mean, that's like the hands down.
I'm telling you. Just get that headlock. That's it. That's right.
All of us here in Texas really felt that Harvey situation. Just you know, something stupid as baseball teams fighting over switching schedules, swapping dates, and I know our church and a lot of churches in the Dallas area brought a lot of supplies down to the Houston area. I mean, it was a big thing for all of Texas here.
Yeah, Buna was kind of like we're the last city, so like half the city or the little town was flooded and half wasn't, and so it was crazy for us because we were like right on the cusp of where like everything past Buna is where you started seeing like really heavy flooding. I mean, we had friends of ours that had 11 feet of water in their house, like just crazy stuff happening 10 minutes down the road from us. And so Buna was like the last place that you could for sure get gas. It was crazy to us because, you know, our little town, we're not even a city. Like we don't have a mayor. Like it's just like this little tiny, nothing little town. There are people pulling in vehicles, pulling boats or having a big truck with supplies with license plates from all over the country. And they were stopping at the Valero in Buna, Texas to grab gas before they went in and tried rescuing people or helping people tear down or build up or restore or whatever that was. And so we kind of got to be like this front row seat to seeing like the rest of the country just really reach out, especially fellow Texans just reaching out and just like being so kind, so helpful, and really helped rebuild a lot of things.
But did you have toilet paper through that?
This is the thing. We had toilet paper we had a hurricane that literally flooded the aisles that had toilet paper on it, and we still had it. So I don't understand what's happening right now. I don't know if people are like using it to like they're building things with it. I've tried Googling like what are other uses of toilet paper, but I only know of a couple of major things, and I don't know why. Maybe people are just nervous. I don't understand. Either way, if you have any toilet paper you'd like to donate, my address is P.O. Box 1029, Buna, Texas.
You know, I think we're seeing a really stark difference between, you're talking about that. I'm just thinking about this here. You're talking about just seeing everybody pour in Hurricane Harvey. On one side, we have this, people are hoarding toilet paper. And what's hilarious to me is people are trying to return it now, all their extra stock, and they're getting shut down.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, there's been a few stories where people are bringing back cartloads of toilet paper because they hoarded it, whether for resale, to jack up the price or whatever it was. Yeah. And now they're trying to return it now that they see, you know, it's not as bad as the apocalypse or anything. But you're talking about everybody coming in for Hurricane Harvey and helping, just that, you know, uplifting. And now we come to this here and it's kind of everybody for themselves and hoarding toilet paper, hoarding sanitizer and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to think that when it's localized in a single area, everybody's able to rally and help and link arms and just get it done. And now that it's across the whole world, it seems like it's falling apart and it's every man for themselves.
Yeah, but you know what though? Like I've also seen some of the sweetest signs of humanity. I mean, the fact that we're all going through this, you would think would like unite everybody, but it's turned into where like kind of every man for themselves, kind of just going for it, you know, whatever it takes to survive this thing. But man, how much stronger would we be if we just kind of came together and did this? So those moments where we do have people reaching out, and I know there's a ton of fellow Christian artists and stuff who are doing Bible studies, who are doing quiet times, who are spending time with people in the quarantine, doing free shows. I just recorded a concert that's playing tonight for Baylor University for their campus, for their graduating class and stuff, to kind of encourage them, the class of 2020 who didn't get to walk across that stage and stuff. And so that's the thing, like if we could all just try to find ways safely with staying 6 feet apart and all the kind of things to continue to work through this thing together, I think it's just going to make everything stronger. Because at some point, we're going to have to go back to living with each other again. Like things are going to go back to probably a new version of normal, but at the same time, we're going to be like shoulder to shoulder out in the real world again. I'd much rather do that knowing that I've been able to lean on the shoulder next to me kind of through this thing before we get to free at last when we get out of this whole thing again.
You're talking about Harvey influencing some of the songs from this new album. Walk us through some of the life that's happened that brought the songs from this album out.
I tell people all the time, if they want to know who I've been for the last 3 years, it'll take you about 37 minutes. That's the length of this album. We set out to do two things making this album. Number one, I wanted every line to be laced with scripture. I want scripture to back up whatever we say, because then it means something, number one. Number two, I really, really wanted to tell my story and whatever my story looked like on the day that we were writing the song. We've been very vulnerable, very honest. So there's songs in there of victory and triumph as we've made it past the hurricanes, but there's also the title track, New Today, was a song that I wrote before finding out if my brother Daniel was going to make it through stage 4 colon cancer. He was diagnosed with cancer just a few weeks after Harvey had hit us. So we thought that Harvey was going to be like the biggest thing that we would walk through probably in our entire lives, not knowing that just a few weeks later, something even bigger was going to come in and do much more damage on our hearts for sure.
Wow.
Between the cancer, between the hurricane, and then on top of like all these incredible great things too, like my music being able to reach into the world and change lives here and there and hear crazy stories from people who've been impacted and stuff. Like it felt like we had one foot on the mountain and one foot in the valley all at the same time. And that just stretches you out. And so I just made sure that whenever we wrote a song, it was just honest to what God was walking us through. I still never forget the moment whenever everything was done and we were about to release the album. And so for anybody listening who doesn't know this, you get your album mastered because we use different producers and different instrumentalists and all kinds of stuff. And the guy who's mastering it makes it sound like a record. So just all the levels are the same. And basically he makes it sound like what you're going to hear on the radio, what you're going to hear on iTunes, what you're going to hear in the streaming stuff, you buy the CD, whatever. So they sent it to me for approval. So I got to listen to all 11 songs front to back from beginning to end in the order that we put the record in. And I'll still never forget listening to that record for those 37 minutes and just remembering where I was when God proved each one of those truths to me. I remember where I was when I wrote it, both physically, like who I wrote it with and how that day was. I can remember the lunch we had that day, but also I can remember spiritually and emotionally where I was when we were writing out some of these songs. And it just meant so much to me that I felt like that we did the thing that we set out to do, which is back everything up with God's word, but also try to point people towards the good days, the bad days, the hurt and the hope that we experienced through the last 3 years. Even releasing it during the pandemic, we had it on the books for April 24th for a while. I kind of called them and said, is there any reason for us not to release this? Because, there's that feeling of like, people are going through a lot right now. Like, is this a weird thing to put a record out right now? One thing that I feel like is even more scarce than toilet paper on certain days is just hope right now. I look back and I was like, God has given me 3 years worth of hope and 3 years worth of a pursuit of hope. Why in the world will we not put out this music that I feel like points people back to the hope of Jesus? And so it was kind of a no-brainer at that point. It was weird. Like I'm releasing it from making a concert here at the house and like all the craziness that kind of goes along with that. But at the same time, man, the response has been so special and so sweet. And I can't wait to actually get to play these songs in front of other human beings and see how the response is live in a room. But for now, all the messages that we've gotten have been positive, and I think it's pointing people back to something good in the middle of all this crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And I imagine the wife and kids are pretty much just like, yeah, we heard it, Dad. Come on.
They were tired of this album before it came out. Like, it's like my kids are like writing parody songs of my songs before people even like got the album in their hands. It's been fun. They're definitely not wanting me to play a whole lot of concerts around the house right now. I haven't really done like a house tour. They just asked me to put the guitar up. They're kind of sick of it. They're enjoying my pancakes. You got to know your audience. You got to give the people what they want. And so I'm hanging up the guitar for now and like putting on the apron, I guess.
One of my favorite questions is when you're going through this process, you have this album kind of mapped out in your mind. Which one of the songs really took you for a bit more of a journey than you bargained for?
I think the wildest song on the record was the fastest one that we wrote. Maybe this is the answer to your question, or maybe it's not, but the title track, New Today, we wrote that song just a few weeks before my brother was walking in for an exploratory surgery after 10 months of chemo, for them to tell us, here's how much of his body has been damaged by the chemo. Like, the kind of chemo that he was on, it's not about losing hair. You could lose fingers and toes. Like, it's that intense.
Wow. How
bad are his organs damaged? Like, how bad is his body doing? Also, how much of the cancer did it knock out in the midst of its destruction? How much time do we feel like that we have left, either with him in treatment or just with him? Like, we didn't know if he was going to make it through this thing. So I walk into this writer's room that day with a guy named Colby Wedgeworth and Paul Duncan, two just stellar writers, but also just incredible men of the Lord. And I remember telling him that day, I wanted to be vulnerable. I wanted to be honest. I wanted to tell him where I was. And I just told him, I said, guys, the song that we write today could be a song that we sing in victory with my brother beating cancer, or a song that's sung at his funeral. Like, this is literally where we are right now. And I remember, man, those guys with so much wisdom just pointing back to Lamentations chapter 3 that just says that his mercies are made new every morning. And so all of a sudden, in this place where we're just devastated and asking God to show us mercy, asking God to help us to trust, and feeling like, did we do something wrong? Is there something more that we could be doing for you to give us what we want, for you to draw near to us? We were reminded of his mercy that day. We wrote this song in like 2.5 hours. So we just wrote the whole thing done. And then I had another co-write right after that. And so I remember Colby, who's the producer on the album, who's an incredible producer. He's produced a ton of this record. He told me we had another writing session with a guy named Benji Cowart right afterwards. So Paul left. We're about to go to dinner with Benji, and all of a sudden we get a call from Benji just saying, hey, man, I'm delayed by like 45 minutes. Can we do dinner in an hour? And Colby said, hey, do you want to go ahead and just get a scratch vocal on this song? So the song was just super fresh on me right then. Walked over there with a little microphone, sang my guts out for like 2 or 3 rounds, like just sang the song down 2 or 3 times, just wanting to get basically so we wouldn't forget, so I can come back and do the real vocal later. And that is the vocal that you basically hear on this album. We had to go back and change a few things here and there. But when it hits that bridge and it says, I kept thinking you were angry, but you were fighting just to hold me, I was singing that from the depths of my soul. I was just trying to be as honest as I could be in that moment. And I feel like you can hear that in that vocal. And so I remember Colby telling me, he goes, I think we got something here. And I was like, okay. And so a week later, he sent me a piano vocal, and that's all it was. And that was when we knew that we had something, and it kind of felt like a big catalyst for the rest of the album. And so that song was definitely a journey. It's the reason why it's the title track on this album. It kind of feels like the cornerstone for this record.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, how long does a song normally take to write? Like 8 hours, a day, a week?
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, there's a song called Walking Free that's on the album that I wrote with Matthew West and a guy named AJ Cruz. Met with Matthew, and we wrote another song some that day and started writing Walking Free. We finished like the melody on the chorus and the first verse. And so I don't live in Nashville, so I flew back home. I kept singing the song to myself, felt like it was a good song, came back again, and we worked on it again and got it like 90% of the way there. I left, go back. I was going on tour that day. I flew to Nashville to hop on a tour bus. We wrote before that, won the tour, came back, finished writing, recorded a version of it. It was like, okay, I think it's okay, but I think we changed the key and speed it up a little bit. So I came back, re-recorded the vocal. So that song, I mean, we probably poured 20, 30 hours into that song, making that thing happen. Now, I love it. It's one of my favorite songs on the whole album, which, I mean, honestly, I love the whole thing, but like it really stands out as a bit. You can tell it's a special song, but golly, it took a lot more work on that one than me hurrying up and putting down a vocal before we went to dinner.
To me, I love those songs a lot more just because of that story behind it. You can tell that it's raw and authentic. I mean, A lot of the songs are great. I mean, don't get me wrong. Or I should say a lot of songs that take a lot of time are still great. And you still like them.
Yeah.
But there's just something about that raw, this is what's on the heart at the moment of the song.
It's funny because for a long time I thought, man, if it doesn't come quick, then it's not worth getting. But I gotta tell you, man, the more that I write, it goes back to like what's worth fighting for. So there's songs that I started a year and a half ago that I haven't thought about since I stopped working on them. But it's those songs. There's a song called Love Lifted Me Up that I wrote with Matthew West and Colby Wedgeworth. I was having an off day. One of the most off days I've ever had as a songwriter. So I'm in this room and we're trying to write this song, and these guys are just basically writing it in front of me. And I had no help. And we got to the chorus. We had a good idea for the melody, but didn't really have it figured out yet. I just knew it was going to be love lifting me up. And that's all we had. And they were kind of singing some things about it and stuff. And I just kept apologizing. I was like, guys, I feel like my brain is just blocked. I can't say anything right now or whatever. For 2 weeks, I left that writer's room. We left it unfinished. I could not stop singing that song, just going like, I've got to figure something out. And I was in the shower. I was in the shower and I was singing, love lifting me up, love lifting me up, love lifting me up. and I'm never coming back down. I was like, oh, that's it. I like the melody. So I grabbed my phone, shower in the background, and hoping not to get electrocuted by my wet hands, and just recorded that in, sent it to Colby. He said, what do you think? He goes, I love it. So we popped back in, and I felt like I could actually contribute in on the song. But the thing is, I love the songs that just take 2 hours to write, but there's something about wrestling something down and then on the other side of it, looking at it and go, okay, this was worth the investment. It's like planting corn or something. It's like there's something like going to the grocery store and grabbing a great ear of corn and being able to, or grabbing some meat from the deli or whatever and going home and being able to prepare a great meal with it. But it's also something about planting a seed, watering it, watching it, taking care of it, taking the weeds away from it, guarding it, and then all of a sudden it pops out of the ground and you got something there too. So I'm proud of the ones that get to wrestle down, and I'm grateful for the ones who come fast.
I gotta say, like I said, I love the album. I love the collabs that you have on there as well. Jason Grab, Austin French, a couple of people I haven't heard of yet. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah. No, Miranda Curtis is a great 1.5 to 2 hours worth of a deep dive on YouTube for sure. She is an incredible vocalist. And Nikki Conley is a name that a lot of people don't know. So her and Austin were the ones who sang on a song called My God Fights For Me. And the way that came out was one of the common threads that we have on most of this album is we have a choir on there. So we have a choir on like 8 songs on the album. Well, we hired the same 4 people for like 90% of the choir. So really, the people who've sang on this album just as much as me have been the choir, basically. And so Nikki was part of the choir. And so we kept having them come in and sing these parts down, and they're just incredible. They're such good singers. All of them were. But Nikki, like between songs, like between takes, she just kind of be singing to herself. And I'm going, golly, she's such a good singer. And so when the time came for us to do this My God Fights For Me, which is an a cappella song that has a choir in the background, they're basically doing the track for the record. When we were trying to figure out who to put on there, we had some ideas, we had some things fall through. And all of a sudden I was like, what about Nikki from the choir? So I called the label and they were down for it. She came in and just sang the paint off the walls. People don't know Nikki Conley's name just yet, but I feel like if you listen to this song, you will remember her voice for a little while. She's insane.
Well, I can't wait till we can see these songs, or we can see these songs. Wow. What has quarantine done for me?
I love it. It's like a visual. I got to make a music video now.
So you heard it here first, I guess.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm excited to see you back out on the road and hear these songs live and watch as you introduce these songs live for the first time. And, you know, that means we're out of the house too. So that helps.
Absolutely. I'll take whatever I can get.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us for a while, Micah.
Hey, man, my joy. Thanks for having me. And hopefully we'll see each other from closer than 6 feet next time I see you.